Welcome back to Master Gardening. I'm your host, Bud Kwok. You'll never guess what time of year it is. Yes, we've got a fall garden program lined up for you. A lot of good stuff. So stick around, we'll be right back. Oh my. Welcome to Bud's compost pile. This is going to go on one of our vegetable beds for the winter. It's black gold. And for those of you that, this is kind of a professional. It doesn't look very pretty, but it's kind of a professional. It's a lot of hard work's gone into this, and I have lots of compost each year because I have a big vegetable garden. But for those of you that don't want to do this major thing, you can just put a pile of garbage in your back on your back line. You can take a tomato cage or you can create your own little wire circle to put your compost or your garbage in. What do you put in a compost bin? The main thing I put in there is leaves, weeds, spent plants, grass clippings, one of the biggest ones. Now you got to be careful with the Bermuda or Zoysia because sometimes it'll get growing in here, but I really haven't had a problem with that. I've got a little bit of that grass in my lawn. Now, how does this work? Well, I've got a 4 bin here. A lot of times they're just 3. But if you want to make the compost faster than just putting it in here and waiting for it to rot, you rotate it. Like this is almost empty, so I take this pile and I turn it over here into this pile, and then I take this pile and I turn it over into this pile, and so on. It makes it creates this compost a lot quicker. But for me, that's a lot of work. So I just put it in here and let it rot. When I get to the top, I'll start on another one. And by the time I get all 4 of them done, usually I come back to the first one and it's rotted enough to put on the pile. Well, we're going to take this over to the vegetable garden. I've got a good use for this. I'll see you at the garden. We're over into my vegetable garden now, and it's looking kind of rough. Hey Frank, how's it going? Yeah. If you'll notice, my peppers didn't make it. Last week these were great, and there's still maybe a few in there, but I had them covered with this, the last few frosts we had. But this last weekend it got down in the mid-20s, and even this big quilt didn't help. My tomatoes, they got the same fate. But I harvested all the good ones right before it frosted. And even these green ones like this, if you harvested them like this, and this is pretty tough, but before it frosted, you could put it on your counter and it would probably ripen. Back in the old days, we wrapped them up in newspaper and put them in shoe boxes under the bed. That was the way to do it. All you gotta do is put them on your counter, your kitchen counter, and they'll be fine. Okay, this bed looks pretty tough. We're gonna get it ready for winter. The first thing we need to do is pull up these vines, these pepper plants. If you look at them, they're pretty tough. They're almost like bark, like a tree almost. They're so hard. So what are you gonna do with these? You don't want to put them in the compost bin because as hard as they are, it's gonna take 3 or 4 years for them to break down. The other reason why you don't want to put them in the compost bin is because the nightshade plants, which is peppers, tomatoes, eggplant, potatoes, they're all very susceptible to diseases, funguses, wilts, and that kind of thing. So even though they didn't look like it, they've still got those funguses and diseases on them. You put them in your compost bin, your whole compost bin is going to be full of funguses and stuff. So I've got a little burn pile. If you don't have a burn pile, you can always put them in the garbage can. I know that's not the best thing to do, but you don't need to put them in your compost bin. Once I get the plants pulled up, I've got this fabric that I put on top of the ground this year. I'm debating on whether to use it again, but this has to go in the trash too, or you can burn it. It lets the water and air through, but it doesn't let the weeds up, and it also it keeps the funguses from coming through very easily. You know, usually your funguses come from splashing water on the ground. We've covered that in the previous session. With this, it's harder to splash those funguses up on your plants. So this has to come up. It's being held down by big, huge staples that you can get at your farm store. That's next. When I first started my vegetable garden back at this place, maybe almost 25 years ago, I started putting landscape ties down. 2 layers, landscape ties, very inexpensive, very cheap. They were treated, so it's supposed to last 5, 10, 15 years. And once I started doing that, I just realized that it was really not the best way to go. I needed to go with the 2x8s, treated 2x8s. So all the rest of my garden is 2x8s, treated 2x8s, 16 feet long, 4 foot wide. I made them 4 foot wide because most people can reach into the garden maybe 2 feet pretty easily. Then you can get on the other side and reach the other 2 feet. If you make them 6 or 8 feet wide, it's hard to reach the middle without getting in here. You don't want to get in here. You want this to be virgin soil. You don't want to walk on it. That's one of the main reasons you have raised beds. But you can see, this is all rotted. So it's time to renovate. And I kind of like this part. So here's my 16-foot treated 2x8. I've got another one on the other side, and I put a 4 foot one on each end and a 4 foot one in the middle for strength. Okay, Dan, you want to help me with this? It won't take long. Well, what would Martha Stewart do right now? Well, she shows you how to make prepare the dinner, but then she goes to the oven and she finds one already cooking in the oven. This is the one I did last night, already done. Doesn't that look pretty? Isn't that nice? With this wood, that ought to last 20, 25, 30 years. As long as you don't run over it with a lawnmower like I do sometimes and knock it apart. So what do you do next? Normally I would till this, but this is already in pretty good shape. That was nothing 15 years ago, but solid clay. And because I've kept amending the soil, this almost looks like the Victory Garden on TV. Hey, we are on TV, that's right. So I'm not gonna till this. I bought me one of those little, real small tillers. I tried not to do that. I didn't want to do it. I thought they were junk. I've got a big, huge 5-horse that I would horse into here and till up. But after a while, I said, I'm gonna try it. So I got one of those little tillers, and it's a godsend. You get in here and till up little spots. You can't break, who fired that shot? You can't break up virgin ground like right here. It wouldn't be good to break up ground like this grass. But when you've already got your bed prepared, it's really good. So I'd till this up, and then before winter, I'd pour some compost in here. We're getting ready to do that. But before that, here's an old house plant that bit the dust. Right before frost came, white flies got it. This was a variegated peace lily, which I really loved. I'd never seen a variegated peace lily. This one doesn't have any funguses in it, so it'll go in the compost bin. So if you've got a house plant or any other plant that's dead, dying, or whatever, be sure and pour it in your beds. Isn't that pretty? Look how pretty that is. Ah. Well, you're making a mess. You're making a mess, Dan. Okay, now you saw we filled up the wheelbarrow full of, and by the way, this wheelbarrow, how about it out of Mother Earth News in 1978? It's still working. It's starting to rot now, and I may have to get me a new one, but this thing is 1978. It's how long, and I don't even put this in the garage. It just stays outside. Look how good a shape it's in. Take this black gold. Spread it around. And since I'm doing this in the fall, some of this isn't completely rotted yet. But that's okay, because next spring, this will all be rotted. I'm taking the time to show you and pull this out of here because I've got another step to show you when I get done with this. You can't buy this stuff. The stuff you buy at the nurseries and what have you are not as good as this, not as good as homemade. And that's another key, it's free. You gotta do something with those spent plants and those weeds and those grass clippings. Okay, I've got a good layer of that. By the way, you can probably see this rosemary plant down here. This rosemary plant is a couple years old. And we're gonna propagate some rosemary a little bit later on. It's a couple years old. It's in a bad spot. I had a bunch more plants in my beds, they all died. This is the southwest side of my garden, and it's not good for rosemary, they'll die. On the opposite side of the house is where they flourish. Next, that's gonna break down, but I'm gonna add one more touch to it because there are weed seeds in there. In your compost bin, there's a lot of weed seeds. The neighbors know I like leaves. They save them for me. They call me when they have them bagged up. The only thing left is I got to talk them into delivering them for me. Then I really have it made. Now those are whole leaves, but they're small, so it doesn't work too bad. Hey. But when I pick my leaves up in my yard, I don't throw them away. I save them for my vegetable beds. My vegetable beds are already taken care of. They go in the compost bin. And because they're shredded with a lawnmower, they're gonna break down in just a couple months. They'll break down almost to nothing but black gold. Okay, now by next spring, these leaves will have rotted and gone down, and they'll be just like, almost like this right here. They'll almost be that good. And I don't have to pull them off of there before I plant. I plant right in them. Now I've got to do this bed. I've got like 20 beds to do like that. So you guys gonna stick around? No? Okay. Before we leave here, you've probably been noticing this plant behind me, and most of you know it's asparagus. This is what asparagus looks like. Asparagus, that's what Dan called it a while ago, asparagus. But the plants are real woody, and they're real thick. They're about that thick, they're about an inch in diameter. And people say, well, it looks ugly, why don't you cut it down, put it in a compost bin? Well, because again, the stalks are too woody, they're too big, it'll take 3 or 4 years for them to break down. So I'll put these in the burn pile also. Asparagus is a very heavy feeder. You can see how big the plant is. It takes lots of nitrogen and fertilizer to get it this big. So if you don't continue to feed it, you're going to end up with very few plants. They get smaller and smaller and smaller and fewer plants. So after I cut this down, which will probably be in another month, some people wait till the spring, but I like to cut it down in the fall because then I'm going to put that compost in here about 3 or 4 inches. And that's just what it wants. I won't even have to put any 10-10-10 or anything like that on there. I'll just fill this up and mount it up with that compost and then put the leaves on top, because with the compost it has lots of weed seeds. And if you don't do something, there's going to be all kind of strange weeds coming up out of there. But when you do it like this, you can just forget it. You don't have to do another thing till you're ready to plant in the spring. Well, let's go around in the greenhouse. I want to show you how to do this rosemary. It's so easy. You can get hundreds of plants if you want. No problem at all. Let's go to the greenhouse. Okay, this is the rosemary that's on my southeast side of my property. And this stuff, unless you have a really bad winter, the rosemary will make it through the winter. I don't take any chances, so every year I come out here and I propagate a little bit. And if we don't have a bad winter, I can give it away in the spring and sometimes sell it at the Master Gardener or my Laurel Garden Club's plant sale. It's real easy. I usually wait till after a couple frosts because that toughens up the stem Before then, it's kind of green and flimsy sometimes. Take about a 6 to 8 inch cutting, and these kind of plants are really good because they send up big, huge shoots, so you can take as much as you want. A couple more. I'm gonna show you how easy it is to propagate this stuff. Now, everybody needs an herb garden, or herb if you're in England, they call it herbs. This is my herb garden. I've got herbs in my flower beds, but this is the main one. And it's kind of looking kind of rough right now because it's been through summer and we've had a drought, and now things are dying and it's time for me to get in here and clean this thing up. That might be another show we can do. But I don't know if you can see it or not, there's some mint that's kind of taking over right there. I got to get rid of that. I like to have a little bit of mint from my mint juleps, but if you don't watch out, the mint will take over the whole garden and you'll lose the whole thing. This is oregano. Oh my. This is sage. It's still looking good. It'll have trouble going through the winter though, but it might make it. I think this is about the 2nd or 3rd year for this. This is dill. And you can see the seeds. This one's still living, but it's got it rough. It won't make it through the next frost probably. It's got some seeds on there. The dill seeds are the part that you usually use. This is fennel. There's different kinds of fennel. Some you use for the leaves and some of them form a bulb. This one forms a bulb. I'm not really crazy about it. It's a licorice flavor, but use it sometimes. I sometimes broil it. This is dill again. And these little small things right up here, these right here, this is thyme. This is common thyme. I used that in a dish I made last night. Jambalaya calls for thyme and basil. My basil's all gone, except I dug up a couple pieces and I'll show you in the greenhouse. I think that's about it. Let's go on the greenhouse and I'll show you to propagate these things. Okay, we've got quite a good selection of cuttings from the rosemary. The first thing we want to do is get some potting mix. Remember on some of our other shows, potting soil, potting mix, looking for that MIX on the bag, because potting soil is not very good. It's good for your yard, but it's not good for pots. Okay, fill these two up. And I don't usually stick, it's called sticking. I don't stick in individual containers like this, but for rosemary I do. I usually stick in a round pot like this, where I can put a bunch in at one time. Okay. First thing we do, get everything lined up here, get assembly line going. Okay, we just cut these off. And like I said, I waited till after frost so it would strengthen up the stem a little bit. Sometimes a little flimsy up here. You just pull those little leaflets off the bottom. You stick them in some water. And then I put it in root tone. There's different rooting hormones. Knock off the excess. Stick it, and kind of plump it up. That's it. Now we're going to water this when we get done. Do a couple more. Some people like to stick their finger in here and make a hole before you do it, so it won't rub off the root tone. Okay, now one other step on that is you want to water it down good. Water it good. Okay, I'll stick the rest of those later. Okay, now this is the time of the year. And if you haven't already done it, I did about 2 weeks ago. Your amaryllis. If you got to time it, you got to know what your amaryllis is capable of doing. And I stuck it. This should be blooming around Christmas. And a lot of people don't take them out of the pots after they've spent the bloom, and I've let them sit in there and revitalize the bulb for maybe 2 or 3 more months. Then I cut them off, let it dry out, take the bulb out, let it rest for a couple months, and then I stick it back in and start over again. Some people don't do that, and I think they have the same results as I do, so I don't know why in the heck I'm doing it, but that's really the way you're supposed to do it. Okay, I said I had to buy some basil for my meal last night. These were real volunteers that were in a bed out here that I was getting ready to redo. There was really hundreds of them came up, especially this. This is basil, and this is what we were talking about out there. Dill. This is a little small dill plant. I don't know if it's going to make it, but this basil's already. I can pull leaves off of it already if I need a little bit of basil. All right, we're going to try something different. It's also time to be forcing plants. And I'm going to show you how to force these paper white daffodils. Paper whites are so easy. They really do well. And I put them out here where the sun could get to them, and you can see they've already started already. Probably a little bit more than I want. All you do is just fill this pot up halfway. Stick these in here about an inch, 2 inches apart. Well, these are nice ones. Okay, you got that. Then fill it up with the potting mix, not potting soil, potting mix. A little bit more. Firm that down and leave about an inch at the top to water. Don't forget, we've had that before. That's what this rim on here is for. You're not supposed to fill it all the way at the top, because if you want to water it later on, it's going to be, the water's going to run over and you're not going to be able to fill it in. Okay, so that's ready to go. I'm going to water that too. And probably around December, January maybe, paper whites. It's still not too late to plant bulbs. A lot of people say, oh, you got to plant them in September, 1st of October. That's when you're supposed to, but you don't have to. I planted daffodils. These are daffodils. I planted them as late as March. All they do, if you plant them that late, it makes them bloom later, which is kind of neat because all your other daffodils are blooming. They quit blooming, and then the ones you planted late bloom again, maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks later than they really should. That's daffodils. These are tulips. The first year I grew tulips here, I bought the most expensive species tulips you ever saw. And I had a flower bed right outside this greenhouse here, and I put the soil in, and it was just loose and just beautiful. And I planted all those tulips, and they came up and they bloomed. And about 2 days after they bloomed, they fell over dead. I said, what in the heck? You go over and pick them up, and there's no root on the bottom of them. Something had eaten the roots off those things, just right down the row, and ate all those expensive tulip roots. It was a vole, V-O-L-E, vole, not a mole. A mole eats grubs. A vole eats vegetation. So, if you don't want them to eat your tulips, you want to make sure, wrap your tulip bulbs in chicken wire. They don't like to eat through chicken wire. Now, if I plant these daffodils, when I die and my grandkids die, these things will still come up every year and bloom. Tulips, not so much here in western Kentucky. If you get a couple of good seasons out of tulips, you're doing good. I don't know what it is. It's not cold enough here in the wintertime, I think. I think if you dug them up and put them in your refrigerator for a couple months, they keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. But if you just leave them in the ground, you get maybe 2 seasons out of them, and that's it. You're wondering what in the heck these things are right here? Well, they're not much. They look like they're dying. They're shriveling all up. I've always grown shallots, French shallots. That's what they look like. You peel all the junk off of them. But I've never been able to get really big ones. The big ones that I get, they rot real quickly. And I don't know what it is. Maybe our area here is not good for shallots. But I've got about twice this many more heads. Little ones like this, you need to plant them right now. I'm not going to. I'm going to throw these in the trash because I'm just tired of fooling with them every year. They come up and they do real well, but they got little tiny shallots on them, and my wife doesn't like anything little like that she has to cut up and what have you. Okay, but this This is Kwok garlic, and you need to plant it right now. It'd be better if you planted it maybe in September, October, but you can continue to plant it now. This is what's called elephant garlic. It's a real small elephant garlic. It can be about 3 times this big. You break it apart into little bulbs like this, and you plant it in the ground with the pointy end up. You want to make sure you plant them the right way. Okay, let's head to the beehives. Okay, we're at the apiary, and I've already medicated my bees to protect them from the mites and the funguses, because without that, bees can't survive the winter. They'll kill them. Also, these 2 hives are a little bit weak. They don't have enough honey to make it through the winter, so I'm feeding them. And you can tell they pretty well like it. Now this is 50% sugar and water. And I'm probably gonna get stung on this one. These guys here are not happy that I'm screwing with them. Especially when that didn't fit in there very good. Well, that's it for today, guys. Until next time, good gardening. Oh. Little dog. Dan! Little sucker. See him? You got me right?